You know what? I was lucky enough to play the game that I love for as long as I did. It's just it was a special thing to play here in Winnipeg as long as I did and still be involved today with True North and the Manitoba Moose and Winnipeg Jets. I think it's pretty amazing.
So this year we're celebrating our 20th season of Moose hockey in Manitoba. I think if my math's right, you were a part of 9 of them as a player, and many, many more since. So how do you explain the Moose's legacy in Manitoba when people ask you about it?
I think we were here at a time, not shortly after the Winnipeg Jets 1.0 had left, and I think we were able to kind of keep hockey alive in the city. That was important to people, and a pretty good brand of hockey, a step below the National Hockey League, and it made people kind of appreciate hockey in Winnipeg and how much they enjoyed the sport. And I think the whole organization, from Mark Chipman, Craig Heisinger, Randy Carlisle when he was here, the players that played here did a great job of promoting the game and working their tails off every night to show people that it was hockey that they wanted to see.
So I'll ask you first what it is like to be a player wearing a Moose jersey in those years, and then afterwards we'll talk about the now years too. So what was it like to be a player?
You know what? It was pretty special, especially because I was from Sioux Lookout, that is in northern Ontario, about 4.5 hours east of here. I grew up coming in to see the Winnipeg Jets play and didn't know much about the Moose, but to be able to play hockey in the closest city to my hometown, where it was professional hockey, and got to see friends and family and come to the big city and play on a team that at the level that it was really cool. And we started out of the old Winnipeg Arena that was pretty neat in itself, because that's the arena that I come to used to watch the Jets play in. And then we were lucky enough to move down here to this building and play out of here for a few years.
I got a ton of questions popping up as you say that I'll try not to geek out too much on it. But so just on the arena maybe, and then we'll get back on track in a minute. When you've made, without getting too over the top, when you've made an impact like you had and have in Winnipeg, and then to move arenas, and then to go to Germany, and then all this stuff, what was the emotion of coming back to Winnipeg yourself to be a part of True North again? And then the next step, what was the emotion when the Moose came back as well?
Well, sort of, I think I know where you're going with this, and I think the biggest thing I remember from my first time with the Moose, when I was here, was the old Winnipeg Arena, and I will never forget my first practice with the Manitoba Moose. I was the first person out on the ice for the first practice that we had, and I took a step out onto the benches, and I remember looking up and seeing the old Queen in the building, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's certainly something that people remember forever about those days. And then what about your first impression down here?
And then being able to come down here when Mr. Chipman and his group was building this arena, we had a few tours of the building before it was done, and it was kind of surreal that, hey, is this really going to happen? You're like, we were all so used to the old Winnipeg Arena up at the mall, and we'd come down here. And then, the first game that we played, I think it was against the St. John's Baby Leafs we played against. And I think we won in overtime. Nolan Baumgartner might have scored. I think I remember that after 8 concussions. But it was, again, pretty cool. It's really hard to put into words, but there's a lot of emotions that kind of come about when you think back that far. But it's pretty neat.
And then to be asked to return after your time playing hockey was done, to be asked to return and make another impact on the organization in a different way. What was that for you?
Again, another amazing experience. Kind of a family decision with my wife and kids. I loved the game of hockey and would have played as long as I could have until they, took both my legs away or my arms, which Zinger would say they did when I was playing. But I loved the game of hockey, and it was a tough decision to kind of give up on the game that I loved. But I knew also that it was the right thing to do. for my family, for where I was at what point in my career. I knew that this opportunity wasn't going to come along again, and I thought, my wife and I both talked about it and said, okay, this is the right thing to do.
And now to have the Moose back in Winnipeg, we're 5 years in at this point, and you see even a night like last night, and that will be out of context when this is aired, but a night like seeing all the kids that are still attached. It's a whole brand new generation, but they're led here by the former generation that grew up watching you. That's got to be pretty neat.
It is, and it is funny. Like I still have friends and people that I haven't seen around the city in a long time that stop and talk, and we talk about the old days and stuff like that when the first Moose were here. But to be a part of it now, I think it's a pretty special thing right now to see these young players and have an NHL team here and see these young players move on, to be able to see the development. I think back when I was here, there were players that moved on to the National Hockey League, and it was a little bit more difficult for Winnipeggers to follow their development if they went to Vancouver or they went to other teams when we were in the IHL or things like that. So nowadays, to see the hard work that the coaching staff, Pascal Vincent and Eric Dubois, Marty Johnston, Mike Keane, Craig Heiser, see the work that all these guys put into this system and this team here, and for the fans to see it pay off at the next level is pretty neat.
Let's see if I track this correctly. So in your time playing here as captain, you had Randy Gillen, Scott O'Neill, Brian Chapman, Dallas Aikens, Baumgartner, and as well a year of Mike Keane as your captain. Talk about a group like that. That's leaders and coaches and
and all of those guys, which is really cool, is that I became pretty good friends with over the years, and still a lot of those guys are still involved in hockey. Except for maybe Gilly, and I still see Gilly around the city, and Randy Gillen, and have some great conversations with him too. But it is pretty neat. You look at those guys, that goes to show this organization and the quality of people that they select and the character that they had in those group of captains that you just listed was pretty cool throughout the years here.
Do you have a rival that you remember from playing here? Is there a team or even a game or some moments that you
really?
Yeah.
Holy man!
I've been asking a lot of the guys about opponents, and it's been kind of interesting to hear their memories.
Without a doubt, the Chicago Wolves.
Yeah.
With no question, the Chicago Wolves. When Chevy was at the helm in Chicago, and Zinger and Randy were here, it trickled down right to on ice, and Chevy says I still owe him a new pair of shoes from one of the brawls that we had, and I probably owe more than that. But for sure, the Chicago Wolves. Every time we'd go there, or they would come here, it just seemed like it was going to be a war.
I know my favorite, or most ingrained Jimmy Roy Moose memory, but what's yours?
On the ice, probably. It was a double overtime goal against Houston Aeros in Game 2, I believe, of a 7-game series. We were down 3-2, and actually we were down 3-1, and it was a double overtime goal at the old Winnipeg Arena, and we ended up coming back and winning the series 4-3 and beating Houston. That would probably be my most memorable. There was probably another one too back when we were playing in the American League, which was another double overtime goal in Worcester. We snuck into the playoffs. We were on the road for I think 2 weeks to end the season, and then we went to Bridgeport, and we had a week off, and then we started the first 2 games there. It was like last month of the season we were on the road for, and we lost the first game and won the second game in double overtime too, which was a pretty memorable moment.
Something special happening in February, and I know it's special for you too. So, what's it going to be like to see your number up there in the Raptors?
You're gonna have to cut this out a little bit.
I got you.
Okay. You don't expect it as a player. It's not something you ever think about. Or for me, anyways, I never thought about it as a player. You're just playing the game you love, and that's all there is to it. Is you're like a little kid in the backyard. Just dreaming to play hockey for a living, and that's what I got to do.
Talk about some of those guys that we mentioned before. I talked to Randy Gillen as well, doing some of these interviews. Himself, Nolan, other guys. When I tell them that, we're going to use these videos to tease this game, and at this game, we're going to retire Jimmy's number. and to a man, all of them say, yeah, that seems right. So having some of your friends, that have stuck by you throughout your career, and what would you say to those guys now, seeing where you are?
Well, without those people, none of us would be here. Those are the guys that are, they were heart and soul people you wanted to be around, people and players and friends that made you a better person, just by how they acted and what they taught you, their beliefs, their character. Randy Gillen, Scott Arneal, Brian Chapman, Randy Carlisle as a coach, Dallas Eakins, Nolan Baumgartner, without a doubt Mike Keane, who's one of my best friends now, and forces me to be a better person every single day. Those are the people you want to hang around, and you want in your life. Very, very special people.
Yeah, I'll give you one more tough one, and you're leading me there as well. So, pretty special to get your jersey retired. What's it going to be like to see it retired next to the number 12 up there too?
Well, Mike is a pretty amazing person. Mike and Tammy and his whole family, Jackson, Olivia, they've been like family to me. I've known Keener for a long time. And he may not know it, but like his work ethic, what he's done, has driven me to be a better person and a better player. He always believed in me as a player, and it was funny. We were always the two veterans players. One of us would be out of the lineup all the time. Not all the time. Sometimes we'd be in there together, and we were line mates for a while, which he probably wasn't too fond of. But we both understood what we were trying to do, and normally in that scenario, two people would be at each other's throats because they wanted to be in the lineup and playing. I think we both understood what we were doing and trying to help the Moose and help this organization win. I think we kind of embraced it. I learned from him, a guy who's played, over 1,000 games in the National Hockey League, 3 Stanley Cups with 3 different teams. You cannot not learn from him. So I think that was a special time to play with him, and to have it next, it's not even real. If that makes sense.
I got one more for you.
Yeah.
Zinger. What can you say to a guy like that that's been involved in your life for a long time?
This was going to take me a minute.
Yeah, I'll throw Mark in there too. These two guys are.
When I first started playing, Zinger was my trainer. He was a guy that sharpened my skates, and I would sit in his training room with my feet up on his desk as he was sharpening skates and joking around, laughing at players, and he was there for me through some pretty tough times, and he didn't have to say much. I always knew that he'd have my back. And then he became kind of our GM, our assistant GM, from going to a trainer, and which took a lot of courage, took a lot of brains, hard work for him to be able to do that. And now, he's my boss, and he's one of those people that you have very few close friends on one hand that you could say, hey, whatever this guy needs, I'll do it. Drop of a hat, whatever you need, I'll fly across the world for it. What do you need? I'll do it. Because above and beyond, my boss, my colleague, my trainer, whatever it was, he was a friend, and he's a really good friend. That's something that it'll be there for life, no matter what. Mark is the same way. Mark believed in me from the first time. He probably seen me play. I remember he always tells us stories about when we came in here with Team Canada and we played, and I created a relationship with him and he creates it with all of his players and all of his people that work with him. He has a unique ability to create a relationship with you that goes above and beyond your job, and you want to work for those people. You want to do the best job you can because you value their relationship and you value their thoughts, and the amount of work that they put into your relationship with them and what they do for you is pretty special. And that's kind of the family atmosphere that's been here with Chipper, with Chevy, with Zinger, with Larry, with the whole staff that's now here, and the coaches, with Pascal Vincent and Marty Johnston, and Eric Dubois, the coaches that are here now. The family atmosphere that they create with the Manitoba Moose is what you want, and they do a terrific job at it.
I lied. I got one more because I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about it. I know that these things, as you sort of indicated, these things aren't something you can achieve on your own. So I think a congratulations is important for your family as well. Yeah. And what is it like to have not just a family coming, but a family coming out to this game?
Yeah, we have my wife and my children. We have some pretty special people that are coming from California, friends and family that are coming up here for this. My mom and dad, God bless them. Without them and their support, there's not a chance I would have got as far as I did. And my brother, Jason, who used to beat me up in the back lane playing road hockey and claims the only reason I could take a beating was because he beat me up. Without my family and my friends, everybody knows this is not possible alone. Something like this takes a group of people, and hopefully, I get to share it with them on that special occasion and have some good times.